Welcome to Adulting Candle Company, where grown-up vibes meet cozy self-care. Whether you're manifesting peace with a crystal-infused candle, rewinding with a nostalgic wax melt, or turning your bathroom into a spa with our signature body products, we've got you. We're not just candles, we're a vibe. All handmade, ethically sourced, and wrapped in love. And sometimes glitter. Craving peppermint wonderland? Obsessed with opulent florals? Need a candle that says, "I survived today"? Yeah, we have all that too. Join the Adulting Candle Company fam and light your life. One intention, one flame, one fabulous scent at a time. Shop now at www.adultingcandleco.com or find us on TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook at Adulting Candle Co. I'm Henny B, and welcome to the World War I Stories podcast, where history comes alive through the voices of those who lived it. Some scenes in these stories may be too graphic for sensitive listeners, so listener discretion is advised. Hooked on the podcast? Now you can hold the stories in your hands. World War I Stories, Tales Beyond the Trenches, Volume 1 is now out on Amazon. 10 unforgettable tales of resilience, loss, and hope from the people forever changed by war. Available in paperback and on Kindle. Today's episode, Over the Curving Road. The sun hung low in the morning sky as she waded into the flowers. They seemed taller today than they had yesterday. Was that even possible? Marguerite wondered. She had crossed the dirt road to pick flowers here for as long as she could remember, which, in truth, wasn't all that long. She had only just turned 12. The field itself was tucked between two wooden buildings that served the small Belgian village. One, a supply store where men came and went with sacks and barrels, and the other, well, she wasn't sure. Some sort of administration building. Grown-ups entered it with serious faces and left the same way. She had never been inside. She carried a small wicker basket, a gift from her grandmother last winter. It was simple, handmade, and lined with cloth that smelled faintly of lavender. She cherished it. Since her grandmother had come to live with them, getting up there in age, her mother often said, Marguerite had made it a daily habit to fill the basket with fresh flowers just for her. It wasn't something she'd been asked to do. It just felt right. Looking up from the flowers, Marguerite turned towards the house. From the field, she could see her parents going about their morning chores. Her father was working the new horse again, his shouts cutting through the air, followed by the sharp crack of the whip. The horse reared slightly, hooves flashing in the mist. Nearby, her mother was bent over the chicken coop, gathering eggs into her apron. She would be making breakfast soon. That was good. Marguerite's stomach was already growling. She bent down to look at the beauty that surrounded her. Light blue flowers with yellow centers. Forget-me-nots. The field was full of them, and they had become her favorite. She reached down and picked 3, gently placing them in her basket. Some of the flowers started to sway. There was no wind, she thought to herself. Her ears twitched as a low rumble, one that she felt more than heard, crept into her consciousness. She stood and instinctively looked towards her house. Her father had noticed it too. He had moved slightly away from the horse, whip in hand, and was staring down the dirt road that led through the village. Marguerite followed his gaze. Dust swirled in the distance. Someone or something was coming down the road. She glanced back at her father. His expression was confusion mixed with concern. Her mother had joined her father, holding her apron to protect the eggs. "Father, what is that?" Marguerite yelled. "I do not know, my love," he answered. They continued to look on as the cloud grew closer and the rumble grew louder. By now, other villagers had come out of their homes and joined them, everyone curious about what was happening. Father figured it out before she did. She watched his face drop, his entire demeanor changing in an instant. He started towards the road, stepped over the small wooden fence he had built last year, and stood in the center of the road, facing the direction of whatever was coming, facing it head on. Her stomach dropped, and so did the wicker basket, as the truth settled over her. It was an army. The road curved gently out of the village, winding past the old mill and the empty orchard, now stripped bare. Marguerite walked in the dust, her mother on one side, her grandmother on the other, with a slow-moving knot of villagers ahead and behind. No one spoke much. Some pushed carts, some carried bundles. A few led animals, though most of those had been taken by the soldiers. The sound of their footsteps, boots, clogs, worn shoes on gravel, was steady but uneven, like the heartbeat of something injured. Marguerite still wasn't sure when the decision to leave had been made. It had happened in pieces. First, the soldiers came, marching into the village, rifles gleaming, orders shouted in sharp foreign syllables. Then her father. Her father had stood in the center of the street blocking the procession of soldiers and equipment. A man on horseback barked at him, but neither Marguerite or anyone else knew what he was saying. The entire village spoke French, and this man was speaking what sounded to Marguerite like German. Everything happened so fast. Her father lifted the whip he had held. A sharp crack pierced the morning, and then he was blown backwards, crumpling to the ground. Almost just as fast, the man on the horse leapt down and slammed the butt of his revolver into the head of the soldier who had fired. Marguerite didn't even feel herself moving. She just ran. So did her mother, eggs falling from her apron smashing into the dirt. She remembered it so clearly, she and her mother reaching her father at the same moment, both dropping to their knees, devastated by what they saw. Marguerite had looked up. It seemed the whole village was there now, gathered in the road, forming a wall between the German army and what remained of her family. But they weren't stopping anything. They were just standing there, silent, uncertain, curious about what was happening, yet powerless to do a thing about it. The officer climbed back onto his horse, brushing dust from his coat as if nothing had happened. He barked again, calmer this time, and another soldier jogged forward, a younger man with a thin mustache and nervous expression. He spoke in halting French, words thick with accent but clear enough. "This village," he said, glancing towards the crowd of silent villagers, "is now a part of the German Empire." There was a pause as if he were waiting for someone to object. No one did. "You may stay, or you may leave. It does not matter," he continued, reciting the words like a list of chores. "This place is needed. The Kaiser's army will take what it needs. Men will be left behind." The officer turned his horse in a slow circle, surveying the village like someone appraising land that had always belonged to him. Then, without another word, he snapped his reins and rode on. The column followed, boots stomping, carts rattling, bayonets glinting in the sun. They marched around the villagers and around her father's body, like it was nothing. Now, here they all were, following the curved road out of the village and into an uncertain future. Marguerite looked back at the village they were leaving behind. She could still see the steeple of the church. She could still smell some of the chimney smoke emitting from the small homes. Then she remembered. Her basket. She had dropped it in the field. Her steps slowed. Her chest tightened. She turned to her mother. "My basket," she whispered. Her mother didn't respond right away. Her face was pale, eyes forward. Marguerite glanced at her grandmother. She was breathing hard, gripping her walking stick with both hands. Marguerite stopped. I have to get it. Her mother turned sharply. Marguerite, no. But she was already running. The road felt longer in reverse. The warmth of morning had faded. She passed others still gathering their things or deciding whether to leave. No one tried to stop her. She entered the village from the far side and slowed. It looked different already. German soldiers moved in and out of buildings, laughing, shouting, carrying crates, ignoring her. Horses were tied to fences that once kept in goats. Wagons full of food, tools, and even furniture rolled towards the center square. She recognized some of them. Mr. Sharon's cart, the Laban family's copper wash tub, her schoolhouse bell now discarded near the well. It all looked like it had been theirs forever. Her basket still lay in the field of flowers, their beauty a stark contrast to the village now. She picked it up. The forget-me-nots inside were full and still beautiful. One petal stuck to the woven rim. She brushed it off, but gently, as if it might bruise. Behind her, a soldier stepped out of the bakery chewing something, and didn't even look at her. Another led a chicken by the legs, upside down. She thought it might have been theirs. She fought the urge to pick more flowers. She didn't know when she'd have that chance again. Instead, she turned toward the road, now bustling with activity. Soldiers shouting, horses snorting, carts groaning under the weight of stolen things. When she reached the road, she turned back the way she had come, basket clutched to her chest. In a jog, she caught up with her mother and grandmother. She was exhausted by the time they decided to stop for the night. The sun was sinking low in the sky, painting the road behind them in shades of copper and ash. They had reached another village, small, quiet, and to Marguerite's surprise, still untouched by the Germans. That was hard to believe, especially since their group had been forced off the road 4 times that day, stepping into ditches or behind hedgerows as more German troops passed. Always the same steady rhythm: boots, wheels, metal, and the hollow ring of foreign voices. The soldiers never looked at them. They just moved on. They had passed 3 villages that hadn't been so lucky, commandeered homes, stolen wagons, and flags that didn't belong. With each one, their group grew larger. Now, as they entered this still free village, people stepped out of their homes to watch. They didn't speak, but some brought water. Others nodded solemnly and turned back inside. It was clear this village knew its time was coming. For tonight at least, there would be a roof and a fire. Marguerite didn't ask where she would sleep. She just found a place in the grass behind the chapel and curled up with her mother on one side and grandmother nestled on the other, basket in her arms, the smell of smoke and soil in her nose. It had been nearly a week. They were out of food now. What little they'd started with had been stretched thin, shared, bartered, and rationed until the crusts turned to crumbs. Her grandmother had stopped eating first. Her mother tried to make it seem like she was never hungry. Marguerite had given her last bite to a boy much smaller than her 2 days before. She didn't regret it. Not really. The road had changed. It no longer felt like a path forward. It felt like a funnel, narrowing, filling, drawing more people into it. The procession had grown larger with each village they passed. Some towns had been abandoned. Others had stood watching with shuttered windows and guarded faces. At one, a woman handed out boiled potatoes from a bucket without saying a word. Marguerite never forgot her face. They were camped now in a shallow hollow near the forest line, just off the road. A small fire flickered beneath a bent cooking pot, though it held nothing but water. That was when she overheard the men arguing. They stood just beyond the trees, not far from where Marguerite sat with her basket in her lap, stripping leaves from a twig. "I don't think we should keep heading south. We should go west," one man said. That's preposterous. Do you know what lies west of us? The other asked, defiant. Yes, I do. If we travel one more day west, we'll be in France, the first man replied. We can't climb mountains, not with children, not with the old. The Germans are marching on France, the other said flatly. It won't be safer, just closer. That's why we should go. At least we won't starve in the woods. The second man rubbed his forehead. Switzerland is neutral. They'll help. They won't let us in, not all of us. They might let the children. Silence stretched between them. Marguerite looked down at her basket and closed her hand around its rim. She didn't understand borders, but she understood fear and hunger and the way the men looked when they thought no one was watching. She felt someone sit beside her, a familiar rustle, the soft press of cloth. Her mother. They didn't speak at first. The fire popped quietly and the men's voices faded behind the trees. Then, without turning her head, her mother said, "We will brave the mountain." It wasn't a question. It wasn't even a decision. It was a shape of their future spoken aloud. Marguerite didn't nod. She didn't need to. She simply held the basket a little tighter and leaned into her mother's side. They broke camp at dawn. The air had turned colder overnight, and frost clung to the grass where they had slept. Marguerite's grandmother was struggling. Her knees buckled on the slope just beyond the river crossing, and it took both Marguerite and her mother to help her upright again. "She's not going to make it over the mountain," someone murmured behind them. Her mother heard it, though she didn't say anything at first. That evening, they stopped near a long stone wall just outside a ruined village. There were signs of looting, doors torn from hinges, a cart missing a wheel, bits of straw scattered on the ground like broken promises. Her mother stood still for a long time, surveying what remained. Then she told Marguerite to wait with her grandmother, and she disappeared into the shadows. She was gone a long time, long enough for Marguerite to worry, long enough for the fire to burn low and the night to deepen. Then, from the edge of the ruined street, she heard the creak of wood, the squeal of metal. Her mother emerged, pulling a small cart behind her, 2 wheels, a hitch bar, and a battered wooden bed, just wide enough to hold a person lying down. It wasn't pretty, it wasn't new, but it moved. Her mother guided it forward like she'd been born doing it. No one said a word, not even the men. Marguerite stood in awe. To her, it felt like a miracle. "Where did you find it?" she asked, voice hushed. Her mother wiped sweat from her brow. "I didn't. I made it. From 2 wagons they broke and left behind. It just needed a little thinking." Marguerite stared at her. In that moment, she didn't see tired eyes or a fraying coat. She saw something unstoppable. The next morning, she looked on as her mother took some rope and tied it firmly around her waist. She was going to pull the cart. 2 men stepped forward. The first one looked her up and down and said, "Ma'am, let us pull that." Her mother gave a polite smile. "Maybe when I get tired?" "Sounds good," said the other man with a nod. "Let's put the lady in the cart." And that's what Marguerite watched happen. Villagers came forward to help, adding blankets and coats, anything soft they could spare. The 2 men lifted her grandmother gently, carefully, and laid her into the cart like something sacred. One of the women touched Marguerite's arm. "You too, sweetheart." She shook her head. "I'd rather walk." They had been walking uphill for most of the day. The path narrowed as it rose, winding through rocky hills and thinning trees. Every breath came with more effort now, and the cold clung longer in the morning. They were approaching another village, though no one dared assume what they'd find there. The cart, Mother's cart, had become more than just a way to carry grandmother. It had become a lifeline. The villagers took turns pulling it now, tying the rope around their waist so they could lean into the climb, hands free to balance on the uneven ground. They called it the wagon, as if it always belonged to them. But grandmother walked more than anyone thought she should. She would rise at dawn, quietly lace her boots, and wave away the hands that reached to help her in. There are others who need it more, she'd say, each time the same. And there were. A boy no older than Marguerite, too feverish to stand, an elderly couple who had lost their only horse to soldiers, a man with a twisted ankle who had gone after a goat that no one managed to catch. The cart creaked up the slope like a relic pulled from another world, carrying those who couldn't carry themselves. Marguerite walked beside her grandmother most of the way, offering an arm whenever the path turned loose or steep. She didn't ask why grandmother kept walking. She already knew. The village came into view in the early afternoon. It was small and nestled into the foot of a mountain range that so dauntily stood before them all. It was smaller than any of the others they'd passed, and quieter. No signs of soldiers, no flags. Just smoke from a few chimneys and the faint smell of bread baking somewhere down the lane. They were allowed to stay in the church hall. No beds, but walls and a fire that burned steady all night. The villagers were kind, if cautious. Some handed out bowls of thin stew. Others helped unlace boots stiff with mud. A few looked like they had once been travelers themselves. No one spoke of what came next until the next morning. The air outside was sharp and blue, and the snow line sat just above the roofs. Marguerite sat on the stone steps with her basket in her lap, watching the light spill slowly over the peaks. In her hand, she held one of the dried forget-me-nots. Its color had faded, but its shape remained, delicate, intact. She turned it gently between her fingers, careful not to let it crumble. Behind her, the church doors creaked open. Her grandmother stepped out, walking stick tapping against the cobblestones. "I think I'll take a walk around the village," she said. "Would you like to come?" Marguerite nodded and stood, brushing crumbs of sleet from her skirt. A walk sounded right. She still didn't feel like herself. Not yet. As they reached the bottom step, her mother emerged as well, shawl wrapped tight against the morning chill. "Where are you going?" "For a walk," Marguerite said. Her mother hesitated, then smiled softly. "Wait, I'll join you." The three of them wandered slowly through the waking village. It was like a painting. Wooden eaves heavy with flowers, paths lined with stacked stones, goats nibbling grass along a low wall. A breeze rustled the trees on the hillside, carrying the scent of pine and hearth smoke. "This place is so beautiful," her mother said after a while. "I didn't know Belgium had places like this. Maybe," she trailed off, "maybe we can come back after the war is over." A small voice spoke from behind them. "You aren't in Belgium, ma'am." They turned. A young boy stood nearby, no older than 8, a bundle of kindling in his arms. He looked at them with bright, clear eyes and added gently, "This is Switzerland." You've been listening to World War I Stories, Tales Beyond the Trenches. If this episode stayed with you, if it stirred something quiet or left you in stillness, share it, follow the show, leave a rating, help keep these stories alive. Our first collection now lives on Kindle. Search World War I Stories, Tales Beyond the Trenches, Volume 1 in your Kindle app, and carry these echoes with you. For glimpses behind the curtain and stories between the stories, join me on Instagram at WWIPod_HennyB. And if you'd like to see your name in the credits, become a producer. Visit our Patreon at patreon.com/World War I Stories and help power the next tale into existence. Thank you for walking back in time with me.